From the Vault is sponsored by Vita Coffee and Wine Bar in downtown Sandusky, where the elite meet to eat. Visit us in person or on the web at vitasandusky.com.
Welcome to From the Vault, Leadership Lessons You Can Bank On. I'm Paul Ward. I'm with my friend Tony Legando, who is a longtime educator, 40 plus years, right, Coach?
That's correct.
Variety of schools, but all elementary, is that right?
All elementary and then a little varsity football after. So I had to adjust from 10-year-olds to 16, 17 on the way to the stadium, which took about 2 minutes. So
that is a pretty interesting contrast.
Yes. Well, the beauty of it is I had the kids, most of them in fourth grade, when they're 10 years old, so you get to know them. Kids have a tendency to know how to hide who they are when they're a sophomore or junior in high school. I know who they are, so it's tough fooling a guy that's been around them for that long. Plus, in all those camps we had along the way, you get to know them. So it's, I think there's a positive side to it, without a doubt.
Well, I'm starting a podcast, and I am glad that you're able to join me. The whole world wants to do a podcast. Why not me? What do you think?
Well, I think you have the right personality for it. I think it could get a little crazy. Why am I thinking right now about drunk history? I'm just not. No, but I think you're a natural for this. I think you should take it and run with it.
Well, I appreciate that. We'll see where it goes. But one of the things I want to do is provide folks some entertainment, but I want to hone in on something that matters to us all also, and that's leadership. And that's why we're going to call this Leadership Lessons You Can Bank On from the Vault. We're actually here in downtown Sandusky at Vita, and we're going to have a conversation about people, about stories, but it's going to revolve around leadership. Now, as I mentioned, Tony Legando is a longtime educator, but also author, speaker. You've done about 100 speeches, right?
Just in the last few years, business, schools, whatever. I mean, I've spoke to a group of 8 people and I've spoke to 1,200. So, but where you say have a podcast for leadership, if I'm getting all these speaking engagements and everything, I mean, people want to know. So I think it's a good catch for it.
How did that get started for you?
With the speaking?
Yes.
Well, I think, a lot of banquets and a lot of parents who were at the banquets. And I had a gal approach me about, hey, I'd like to help you get started on that. And it just comes like this will come natural to you. It just comes natural for me. And then when you see how much people want to learn about leadership, and all I do is share stories really from people who I've learned leadership from the kids that were this high to the kids that are this high, to family, guys I coached with, guys I taught with. So I think there's something there, but it amazes me how much even big businesses want to know, how can we approach these young people better, get them into leadership programs, and I don't know. So it had just evolved that way and more through word of mouth than really advertising.
I see. Well, I asked the question, how did you get into public speaking? How did you become so interested in leadership?
Well, when you coach for 40 years, that's what you try to teach the team. Here's what I think. Everybody out there who coaches, they want to know about X's and O's, and that's it. And those guys don't last very long because coaching for me, teach somebody what we're doing in a heartbeat. We spend a weekend. But it's the guys who I sit down with, the young coaches, and they want to know about leadership. Those are the guys that are going to make it, because I learned early on, okay, I can be the leader. Well, that's not enough. What if I'm not connecting with a kid? So teach everybody how to be a leader. Then you got a whole bunch of people trying to bring the group together. And you know about peer pressure, Paul. I mean, that's the toughest, the biggest pressure out there. So teach kids how to lead, put some of the pressure on them to communicate with the teammates. And the next thing you know, you got a whole locker room full of guys that get it. They understand that that's what this is. It's not about just the X's and O's. It's about bringing people together and getting them headed in the right direction.
I do believe leadership comes in a lot of forms, but I also believe it can be taught and learned. Certainly, there may be such a phenomenon as a natural leader. Speak to that a little bit. Natural leadership. Are you really just born with something, or did they learn it at a young age from home? And how can leadership skills be enhanced while a young person's growing up?
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking of right when you said that, Paul, is we tell guys to be leaders, but we don't teach them how to be leaders. Somehow you have to have an action plan where, okay, we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to get an action plan, which for us, as coaches, is through your practice plan, through the talks that you have with them. So I think there are natural leaders or guys that it comes easier to. But what you want to do is use those guys, and I say that in a positive sense, to help you communicate with the others that don't have a background for it. The guys who came to us that were great leaders, mom and dad did a good job. They've taught them what they need to know about being a part of a team. What about the guys that don't get it, that haven't been prepared for that at home? Teach it, but not just talk. You got to get out there, and then on a football field, it's kind of easy. You have that to work with. You have that tool, that goal that we can all try to win a ball game, and then you teach them how to. So, yeah, you can teach it out of a book, but you better have an action plan with what you're talking to them about in that book. If I go and I speak, and all I do is tell them how to lead, you got to give them, specifics about this is the way you do it.
When I think of leadership, I also think of the presence of good leadership, the presence of bad leadership, and what that looks like, and the absence of leadership. I do see bad leadership as different than simply a lack of leadership. Have you seen that in your career as an educator?
Yeah, a lot. And the old what they talk about is you can learn a lot from someone who's not a good leader, and you really can sit back and think to yourself, "Whoa, I'm not going to go that route with it." But again, I'll go back to just the thought that you have to zero in on it. You can't just stumble upon, hey, there's a good example of leadership. You got to think every day how to connect with these guys, every day how to teach them to evolve to become leaders. So you need to surround yourself with guys who have that same philosophy, not the same X's and O philosophies. You and I disagreed about things as we went along, but never about how to work with the kids, how you want them handled. So as a head coach or as a teacher, you always have to set the pattern for how you want to bring everybody together. Like hiring coaches, they better follow your leadership philosophy or you got to get rid of them. The old adage, and who was that coach from Michigan? You and I have talked about this before. Jerry Hanlon. When he said, you coaches here at this clinic he was talking, you all think team chemistry is the most important thing going. He said, no, it's not. What's the most important thing is coaching chemistry so that the kids can see this is the way you're supposed to do it, the way the coaches get along. Because if you don't, that'll filter down. Next thing you know, your team's not getting along. We never had much problem with team chemistry. We never had much problem with bringing the kids together because we spent so much time on teaching them how to lead, not just yapping about it, but actually teaching them this is the way it's done.
That's interesting when you talk about yapping about it. I think of vocal leaders, but I think of high quality leaders that I've encountered in various aspects of my professional career, my personal life, the high quality leaders who were not so vocal. So being loud, being vocally assertive is not necessarily a component of great leadership. There are quiet leaders, and we've all had experiences with those. So what are the components, I guess, that you've observed across the board that always exist in high quality leadership?
Well, I've often said that high school kids, but you can take this into the business world, you can take it anywhere. Okay, they know fake right away. So if you're at the top and you're spewing some stuff and they're scratching their head thinking, wait a minute, this isn't the way it goes. This isn't. So I think what you need to do is be authentic. When I took over for Coach Manafo, I can't be Coach Manafo. Nobody could, okay? So I better approach it with my own philosophies, with what I'm comfortable with. Because if you don't, people will see through it and then it's not going to work. Some of the best leaders I've had have been very quiet, but when they talked, everybody listened. And I think that's something I've spent a lot of time on is if it's not natural to you, that's not your approach. It has to come from with who you are. You and I have a different approach with kids. You can walk into a locker room in 5 minutes, you've got them eating out of your hand. Me, I stay a little more distant because that's where I'm comfortable. And I can't develop that relationship as quick as you do. It's got to come over time. But head coaches have a little bit different challenge than assistants. But that's the key. When you walk into a locker room, Paul, you were yourself. When I walk into a locker room, I hope that I was myself. Not that you and I don't have flaws. I mean, you can't have more problems in life or made more mistakes in life than I have. But I think that helps us when a kid or some business guy has the same problems. Well, you really can relate to them because you've been there, you've done that. And I used to tell our kids in the locker room all the time, guys, I'm not preaching to you. I've made more mistakes in life than you have, but it gives me a little bit different outlook and maybe a better understanding of what you're going through. And I think kids appreciate that. I know they do. I know grown-ups do the same when they're in business.
College football is going on now, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that insofar as leadership is concerned. But first, let me say welcome to the Vault. Leadership lessons you can bank on. We're here at Vita, downtown Sandusky on Columbus Avenue.
From the Vault is sponsored by Vita Coffee and Wine Bar in downtown Sandusky, where the elite meet to eat. Visit us in person or on the web at vitasandusky.com.
Welcome back to From the Vault, leadership lessons you can bank on. I'm Paul Ward. I'm with my friend Tony Legando, who's been a lifelong educator, really, and a football coach, an author, a speaker. We're going to talk a little bit about college football and how that landscape has changed dramatically in recent years. But before I get to that, let's talk about author. You wrote a book?
Well, actually, a few of them. One for fourth graders. I took some of the stories that I wrote in my first book, and I thought, well, I've spent all this time with kids that are 10 years old. The stories I like, take those stories, turn them into fables. And that was a process. It's a little one-page deal, but it's hard work. But the deal is, Paul, is I've learned from so many people, and I think I've tried to implement that when you get at the end of your career, I think what you should do is share what you've learned. You just walk away from coaching and teaching and you don't say a word to anybody. No, all these people that I have had in my life who have gotten me to a point where we could experience some success. So the fourth grade book, Fables for Young Leaders, and then just stories, the other two books, and it's just a follow-up, volume 1 and then volume 2. It's just stories about people who have affected me or stories that I've read that I want to relate to people or that I've heard when I sat at a clinic. So it just seemed kind of senseless to me. Okay, you're done? No, share what you've learned. I had a college, and he ended up being assistant at the pros, tell me that, oh, wow, you won some ball games. You won over 200 games. Yeah, it's time for you to share. And I said, what? He said the same thing. You're going to walk away from it and not share what you've learned? There's a lot of young people, a lot of business, a lot of other coaches that you can affect. Give them something they can put in their hand and keep for a while. And it's been a great process. It's gotten me a lot of speaking engagements. And it's just, it's like writing for the Register. Every other week I put in a little story again, somebody or something that spurred me on. And the feedback I get, I mean, that's comforting, it's nice, but you feel like you're still making a difference. You can't go that hard for 28 years as a head coach and just walk away without, and you still have the feeling, I'd like to make a difference, so that's the way I've been able to do it.
What are the titles of the books?
To Lead a Good Life, pretty simple, To Lead a Good Life, part 1 and part 2. And, I'm working on actually, and I've talked to you a little bit about this, put together a little curriculum for it, a supplement that teachers can use that are in any type of, or businesses can use, where it is actually a story, but then there's an action plan. There's some questions that a teacher can use or that a business person can use. And I've been approached about it more than once about, hey, put something together, because I don't think there's a lot of curriculum books out there that aren't just the cut and dried thing. There's a story behind it, something that kids can relate to. I think I can relate to kids. I think I can relate to leadership, where anyone can take it and run with it. So that's what I do with that time that I used to spend all winter long putting playbooks together and trying to put an offense and a defense together and match up with the talent that you have. So it's been a natural for me, and it's just like a hobby. It's what I like to do, get up in the morning and work it a little bit.
Give me an example of a story that is included in your fables.
Well, in the fables?
Yes.
Well, there's one that Coach K, Mike, I'm not even sure how to pronounce his last name, Shevashevsky,
right.
Where when he was at West Point and they kept telling them to get dressed and be out here in 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes or 5, and they would come out late all the time, and they just go after him like they do when you're at West Point. And the guy would always say to them, if you learn to work together, this will happen. He said it finally clicked in, okay, that they help. I might be tying your shoes while you're fixing my shirt, and they got the whole room, the whole group working together. So turn that into a fable where, it's always got some animals or whatever, but the same story. Or Danny Bernard, who, was paralyzed from the neck down for a lifetime. He got in a car accident. I think he was going to prom or homecoming. And, what did he go on and become? He went on and became a painter, which is crazy. But, the old therapy thing where they put the brush in the person's mouth and they wiggle their tongue and their lips and their teeth to paint by numbers. Okay? Well, that intrigues kids. Mm-hmm. And then to put it into a fable where that story relates to them. And what I noticed, Paul, early on, is kids are just enamored by fables. The first sentence, they're gone. Well, write a first sentence to bring them in isn't that easy. I mean, a fable might have 40 sentences in it max, and you have to relay a story like that. It makes you really be efficient with your words. But we have, my wife and I have been to probably 40 area schools. We work with area service groups, for instance, the Eagles, and we work together so that every kid in that school in the 4th grade walks out with their own book. And I don't know if the kids are more thrilled than those guys that come from the Eagles or the veterans. I mean, they're just thrilled to be a part of it because they worry a little bit what's going on at schools today, so they jump right on it. And I go in and give them a little 15-minute talk about leadership and working together and how important it is to listen to their teachers and all that. So it's, again, just things that I do now that I'm done coaching.
With your experience, particularly in the classroom, but also on the football field, teaching these leadership lessons, creating environments where leadership lessons can be learned, have you had the gratification of an adult who you taught or coached come back and say, I've become that leader, or I've strived to become that leader, and I've had success in my business, in my home, in whatever environment?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging about it, but you go 28 years, you're going to find a few. You can find more than a couple. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and that's the real rewarding part. You taught. When you see a student that you have And they say the simplest thing, but it makes you feel like, all right, my time and effort was well served. Cody Thompson played, at Toledo, played for us in Huron. He played for the Seattle Seahawks and the, Cincinnati. And so he's played around. But when he gave his speech at the Hall of Fame banquet, and he said, what I liked about Coach Legando, he said, I just sit and observe is when he walked into a room, it got quiet. When he walked into the classroom, because it's one of those guys I had, it got quiet. When he walked into the locker room and got in front of the team, it got quiet. So he said, I learned a lot from that. Cody's one of those guys who's kind of quiet, but when he talked, people listened. So, yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback, but I will say this, and I hate to sound like a coach, guys like you, guys who taught me how to lead, Coach Hagee, Coach Wennes, they help that. I don't take it as just for me. I take it as an entire program, a lot of people who work together to try to get someone like Cody. I'll tell you something, Paul, and you know this. If you get a guy in a program as small as ours that's got the talent of Cody Thompson and he's a jackass, you got problems. Because there's hero worship at the high school level and below that. Even for older guys, there's hero worship. Mm-hmm. And when you talk, it's not good stuff, boy, you can negatively affect a lot of people right away. And from working with me, if the guy isn't a good student, if he isn't a good person, if he isn't a good leader, we're not playing you. Well, Cody's a great ambassador for our area football because that kid has handled himself with class every step of the way. Paul, if you listen to him talk, he takes very little of the credit. He'll right away give credit to everybody, and I hope you and I and other people that work with him take a little bit of, feel good out of that, thinking, what, we did a good job with him. But, like we talked earlier, Mom and Dad set the table for us with him. He knew how to handle himself long before he came to me in 4th grade. He was just that kind of kid. So, you learn from a lot of people. You get a lot of feedback. That's the beauty of teaching. If you're in business, you might not get that feedback. You're not going to get as much as we do. You and I can go into a restaurant, we can go into a bar, we can go into a store. There's somebody there we taught, and they're either going to turn and walk away because you didn't have a good relationship with them, or they're going to want to talk. And I think that's what keeps somebody into the leadership role. Even though it can be hard to be a leader, that's what keeps you going.
Cody Thompson, of course, career in the National Football League from Huron, Ohio. I think the only Huron graduate to have such a career. We had some other athletes talking about young people coming back. I taught at Vermillion for a while, and Andy Oliver came back to report to me that he had signed approximately a $1.5 million signing bonus to pitch for the Detroit Tigers. And I know how much impact I had on him as a baseball pitcher, and it was absolutely nothing. But he came back to talk to me anyway, and I appreciated it, and it was memorable. Yeah. Let's talk about the landscape of college sports. It's football playoff season right now. What's your feeling, what's your opinion on how the landscape, particularly of college football, has dramatically changed in recent years?
Yeah, I think it's a Wild West show right now. I don't know how, Paul, just what we're talking about, how you can develop leadership when if you say boo to a kid the wrong way, he says, hey, I'm out of here. It's young people, and I don't know where we're missing this, that still need to be developed. And they bounce around if you look at them cross-eyed, or if, when you weren't starting in Huron football one day, or at Heidelberg, and you could have sat around and pissed and moaned about it forever, but you probably went home and your dad probably told you, suck it up and go win that position. Now they say, well, where can you go to start right away? Where can you go to get more money? And all of a sudden we've lost, I think, what kids that age still need to learn. How to be a part of a team, how to be loyal to your teammates. These coaches now are packing up and leaving before the season ends. And they don't think the kids are going to do that. Mm-hmm. And then guys like you and I are going to sit around and say, boy, where's the loyalty? So I have a hard time. Nick Saban wasn't going to put up with it. That guy spent a lifetime putting together a recruiting package that worked. And he was appealing to, you want to be a leader, you want to work hard, you're going to have to work hard. You're not playing at Alabama unless you work hard. I don't care how good you are. He had his wife involved where he would invite them over and she would wine and dine them. And he says today, all they want to do is know, how much am I getting? Forget all the recruiting, just how much am I going to get? I'm sorry, I'd have a hard time dealing with that at my age. You flash money in front of these kids that have no background at all in how to deal with money. That's crazy to me, but I think we've lost what we're supposed to do in college for education. I don't know. Yeah, they should get some money. I mean, especially the kids that are coming from nothing. But I don't know that you give it to them physically right now. Maybe you put it in a trust, or maybe they can get at it when they're old enough to handle it. But I couldn't do it. I don't mean the knowledge part of it. I don't know that I have enough football knowledge to coach at that level. But it wouldn't fit my shtick at all. That you got to bring guys in and pretend that you're building a program. Day from Ohio State, he's able to deal with it. He's figured it out. He's got a lot of money behind him. But if you listen to those kids talk, I mean, they're talking more about faith-based things and more about staying together. But I don't think there's a lot of coaches that can communicate like that. Like I said, I couldn't do it. Nick Saban didn't want anything to do with it. And I wonder about those old-time coaches. Who would stay with Woody Hayes kicking him in the ass every other play? I mean, tell me they wouldn't have the car running out back. Hey, Dad, I'm not sure you want to leave yet. So to me, it's crazy. It doesn't have. I don't think it's doing those kids any good. You could say they deserve it with the money their university makes. That doesn't mean they're able to handle it. So somehow it's got to be figured out to serve both purposes.
Exactly, and that's why I'm somewhat conflicted in that it has become a business. And so why not have the players who could sustain an injury that ends their chances at the NFL have a little bit of a share of the millions upon millions or billions in profit? I get that. But I also fear that there's a trickle-down effect. The Ohio High School Athletic Association now allows, by court order, NIL. So this is no longer just about 21-year-olds. We have taught 17-year-olds a new word, and it, I think, is the worst word in the English language. You know what the word is? It's decommit. The word decommit. Yeah. It doesn't even make sense. Let's not say commit anymore then, because you can decommit. So yeah. It's a joke. What's your opinion about that?
Well, how many pro ball players do we read about that end up with no money? They get $90 million in a lifetime, and they're broke because people feed off of them. They don't know how to handle their money. They're easy to persuade. So now you bring it down to the college level. Oh my gosh. I bet they got more aunts and uncles that are feeding off of them, along with other business people. Now take it down to the high school level. Paul, I know how crazy you could get when you were in high school. You know how crazy I could get in high school. You're going to give us like $1 million guarantee. All our friends would be dead too. You know what I mean? It's just not healthy. Yeah, they deserve some compensation. I used to think, well, isn't getting a free college education pretty good? I mean, that's pretty good compensation. And over the long haul, you having that degree and getting good jobs, that's a pretty good payday. So, but now you're giving them so much more, and I just, they're not ready for it. So figure out a way to set it aside for when they're old enough, set it aside so no one can feed off of them. And I think some of the college kids need that, and you know the pros do. It's amazing the number of pro ball players that go broke. They don't, and people can talk them into anything. They don't have a business background. You give me that money at that age, what do I know? I know how to play a little ball, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. Now you bring someone that's pretty slick with the business degree or in the business world, talk you into anything. You got no idea what they're talking about. So something's got to be done. There's so much about it that I don't like, that there has to be some research or something done before you're handing them the money. That makes sense to you? I mean, basically, I think in a long-winded way, I said kind of what you said. It's the way I see it.
Well, we have a problem, and that is that we're pretending that it's an educational environment,
Yeah.
you know, an extension of a university, and it's not. We've created the equivalent of minor league baseball. And so I don't know why we're going to continue to pretend that it's a function of a university. I mean, it is, but it's a business.
Well, look at, like I said, it's Wild West out there. And something negative, probably a lot of negative is going to happen before somebody says, hey, let's back it up. But right now, everyone's feeding off these kids.
Yeah.
They're just getting in their heads. And it used to be they'd get inside their head to come to my university. Now it's, we're going to give you big bucks. That's why you should come.
Hey, we've got to take a break. I'm here at Vita, and we're on Columbus Ave. Come on down to Vita. My friend Tom Siegel will pour you something bolder than this coffee I'm sipping on now, and he'll even give you a bite to eat. Well, pardon me, he'll sell you a bite to eat. Come to Vita, Columbus Avenue, and we'll return in a moment from the vault. Leadership lessons you can bank on.
From the Vault is sponsored by Vita Coffee and Wine Bar in downtown Sandusky, where the elite meet to eat. Visit us in person or on the web at vitasandusky.com. From the Vault is produced by Lake Erie TV. Watch us, like us, and follow us at lakeerie.tv.
Welcome back to Leadership Lessons You Can Bank On. We're here at Vita, downtown Sandusky on Columbus Avenue, where my friend Tom Siegel will serve you a libation, as I've got one right here, or a bite to eat. It's beautiful. Come on down to Vita. I'm with my friend Tony Legando, lifelong educator, classroom, football field, author, speaker. We're talking leadership, and I've got a hypothetical for you. Let's say you wake up one morning, you're the head football coach of the Michigan Wolverines, you go to bed that night in a jail cell. I know that would never happen, but let's just pretend it does. Actually, you know I'm kidding about that. And
I hope
it
so.
really did happen, and it happened recently. But here's a person who's got one of the great leadership positions in college football, and now he's the ultimate example of a bad leader, I think. Maybe it's a good leader who made a mistake. Maybe those who know him well would say he really wasn't a good leader. I have a hard time imagining that. But let's talk about bad leadership and components of a bad leader. Not talking about a good leader who makes a mistake, but truly someone who is in a leadership position probably shouldn't be. How does that look?
Well, the first thing you'd say is where's he come from and what's he been through and what's been his preparation to become a good leader. Where I have learned the most about leadership is from myself. Let me qualify that. The mistakes I've made as a leader. I would tell my team all the time, you can't make more mistakes than I've made, okay? But I look back on that and you've made a mistake, and how can I make that better? And some critical mistakes in what creeps in is your personal life, your, as a teacher, as a coach, what mistakes you made, and you learn from that. And those are the heartfelt things that you've been through that hopefully make you better. And you can watch someone else who falls on their face and doesn't get back up. And as a coach, you watch those guys and you try to study it. It doesn't make you all the time a better person, but you hope that it makes you a better leader. And, you look at Woody Hayes. I mean, he used to beat the daylights out of some of his kids. Now, I'm exaggerating a bit, but you know what I'm talking about. His discipline was sometimes over the top. or Bobby Knight. His discipline was over the top. It worked for both of them at that time. And because they had so much success, they could get away with it. But you go back again, that's not the approach that I believe in. That's not the approach that will work for me. But as far as good or bad leaders, I think there's a lot out there that end up getting a job that they're not ready for. I was offered a position at Tiffin Columbian back before I went to Sandusky to coach. And they offered me the job. I knew I wasn't ready for it. I knew I couldn't give the program that I thought was necessary. I didn't have any leadership experience. Working with Coach Manafo, I learned a lot. Working with Larry Cook, I learned a lot. And then just kind of watching, but reading about it all the time. You cannot read more books than I've read about leaders. It doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. It means I've learned what to do when you make the mistakes and how to approach things. And then working with you, you know, where you sit down and you talk about your experiences. I learned from that. But I've learned a lot from the ball players who I've coached. You sit back and, man, that's pretty cool. This kid is a sound leader. And you watch him. You just see the way he interacts with the kids. We used to have the kids come to the weight room 20 minutes before it started. I did that for a reason. I'd stand at one end, you know, kind of keep my distance as a head coach, and all the kids would be down at the other end, and I would watch how they interact and learn from that. You know, what does that kid do that when he talks, everybody listens? And you can feed off of that a little bit for your own development as a leader. So
let's talk about ego a little bit. For example, I think we all have an ego. I think you've got to be a leader and hold a leadership position, you've got to have a fair portion of self-confidence. But I believe you got to keep that ego in check. For example, it was one of the things that I think you mastered as head football coach. As assistants, we had a piece of the pie. And I never remember you feeling threatened by any of us and how we, as long as it fit the team goals, the team's, you know, the program standards, we were allowed to have our piece of the pie and almost grow as our leadership in our own realm. And I've seen other leaders, now here's an example of a bad leader and what they lack. Their ego gets sensitive and they don't allow for that sort of growth or that sort of connection among members of their staff. Talk a little bit about ego, the healthy ego that leaders have and where it can get unhealthy.
Yeah, I mean, anything you read at all about leadership says you got to leave your ego at the door. And going back to what you said about where you were able to express yourself as a leader, number one, you have to bring in the right people who you have faith in that they can have their own position. So the guys I brought in, I got to know them well enough. A lot of them I coached or taught. But nothing's going to work unless you give the good leaders that you bring into the program an opportunity to express themselves. Then what do the kids learn? If you're getting my point of view all the time, instead of Paul Ward's and Sam Holler's and whoever is on staff, you're limiting. There's no way that I have all the answers for leadership. So you bring in people that can cover your weaknesses. What I wasn't good at, hopefully you were. If you weren't in that situation, hopefully Sam Holler was, and it goes on and on. You know, and I'll give you an example, and you might even be familiar with the story. There was a coach who went back to his college, went back to his alma mater, put all kinds of time and effort and extra time because he took pride in that program. He played in that program. So now he's coaching there. He was at the weight room when they had to. He was on the track when they had to be, did everything in a way that he was proud of. First day of practice, the head coach says, take the guys down to the field, all right? And I want them all to show up together. And when that coach gets down there, I don't know, maybe the gate wasn't ready or some of the kids came over the field a little bit late because they were getting taped. Here comes the head coach. He's going to chew that assistant coach out in front of everybody and then expect that guy to be loyal to him. That's bad leadership. He can chew that guy all he wants when it's just the two of them behind closed doors. But that coach didn't even do in my mind, in studying the situation, didn't even do anything wrong. Wait a minute. I got a guy that's going to come in early, a guy that's been a part of the program, a guy that knows how to motivate. The kids relate to him, and I'm going to chew him out on the first day that they actually hit the field? That's crazy. That's poor leadership. And I think one of the reasons I had success, if you and I had a problem, maybe X's and O's, or the way you're working with the kid or whatever, why can't you and I go into the room and talk it over? Because as soon as you add another guy into that conversation where I'm chewing you out or questioning you or making you, the dynamics changes, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. But again, I'll go back to bring in the right people, guys who have your philosophy, and do things the right way. So especially when they're in front of their team, are you kidding me?
Well, we talked about college football a little bit. Let's take it to high school. And in this area, northern Ohio, where we are here in Sandusky and Erie County on the north coast, Ohio high school football has changed yet again with the playoffs. It was, if you go back far enough, I believe the computer points in high school playoffs started in 1972. AAA, AAA, 4 teams from the state made the playoffs in each AAA, AAA level. Now it's, I don't even know how many. We have 7 divisions. It went from 1 per region to 2, 4, 8 to 16, and then now it's 12. What's the right number, and what are the pros and cons of playoff expansion?
Yeah. Well, first of all, times have changed. Everybody's going to get a certificate. Everybody's going to get a trophy. So the argument is, more kids will get a chance to experience that. Well, you have to fight for something before it's going to have meaning to you. You have a setup where a team that's 0-10 makes the playoffs. What is that all about? What kind of leverage do you have throughout the season? I had a lot of success because we were in the playoff hunt all the time. You had that extra little hook to get the kids to work for. But it makes no sense to me. We're supposed to be, that's for intramurals, Paul. That's for gym class. If you're not playing, if you don't get a chance to do it, that's gym class. But now we've taken the kids out of the hallway that are extra talent. I don't care if that's in the band. I don't care where that's at. That you want kids to have to work to be recognized. That's what we do. So now it's made it watered it down. And I have this awful feeling, but I think I know a little bit what I'm talking about. It's money oriented. If you have more games, that's more money for the state. Very little money comes back to a school that's in it. You get to feed your team a little bit, not enough to prepare them for a game. But I think it's people down in Columbus or somewhere that realize, hey, we add more divisions, we add more playoff games, and look, we got all this money to play with. And I'm not sure it ever goes back to where it should go. But I think the real beauty of having it the way it was that you had to work for it. It had to be something the kids were proud of it when they made it. I mean, we made it one year, we were 6-4. It's one of the first years they had the computer rankings. Everybody says, what's that team doing there? We made it to the semifinals because we were a good football team and we played tough teams and we were rewarded for that. I don't know what's going on now. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't handle it.
So right now, snapshot in time, it may change again, but there are 7 divisions, 12 football teams from each region qualify for the state playoffs. What's the right number, Coach? You're a retired football coach, spent a lot of years at it.
I thought when it was just, one team from each region, the North region, the 2 are playing each, I didn't think that was enough.
Sure.
But I think when it was maybe 4 teams per region, what was it back when you and I coached together?
Yeah, 4, and it went to 8 during our tenure. And I believe 5 divisions, and it changed to 6.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not an authority on it, but I think I'm an authority on what I think is a benefit to the kids. What's a benefit to the kids is when they are in a high intensity, competitive environment where they have to work to be successful. not where they can lay down and still be successful. I wouldn't know how to handle that as a coach. You got to have this vision out there that's hard to reach. That's why we're working so hard. That's why you got to come together as a team. And if it's too easy, they're going to scratch your head and say, we're going to make it anyway. So they can lay back and not worry about it. I don't like it.
I think if anyone is a basketball coach or a wrestling coach listening to this podcast, they would like the sound of shorter high school playoffs, because now we're gouging into the winter sports season.
Well, and that's not fair. That's not fair to the coaches in the other sports. That I mean, they got to wait forever to get a basketball player. They got to wait forever to get a wrestler. And they have to get them in shape for a whole different game. What you get in shape for football is nowhere near what it's like in basketball.
Sure.
And you know this better than I would. Wrestling, it's a whole different muscle group. It's a whole different intensity. It's over a longer period of time. So all of a sudden, they're going 4 or 5, and then educationally. I mean, you know, when does it end where they get to go home and be a student?
Indeed.
Yeah, it's just nuts.
Local conference, the new for next year, Northern Ohio Conference. What do you know about that? What's your opinion?
My opinion is what you want is for it to be competitive, number one. You know, we're not a small school playing a big school. That works in volleyball or in golf, where you're not punching each other in the face. And I mean, you don't get to draw from more kids than we do. But I don't think so it's got to be competitive, right? Number one. Number two, I think area matters. I think what the old SBC, and I don't want to sound like I have the in my day disease, where in my day, but it was all built basically around the Sandusky area. You had the Sandusky Register that could cover it all. Nobody had to travel very far, and it just made sense. But I have this suspicion that these big conferences made it easier for ADs, maybe for scheduling. That doesn't mean it's better for the kids. It drives me crazy. We used to play games at 8 o'clock. They changed it to 7:30, so they can get out earlier, is what I think. They can go drink some beer on a Friday night because the game's over earlier. And then it went to 7 o'clock. And you could say, well, what's the difference? The difference is the kids don't get a healthy meal because mom's not home from work yet, or whoever's making the meal. And it makes more hoopla. Now you go to a game and there aren't as many people there because, I mean, if our team is in a league with Lakota, let's just say, my God, that's a far distance. People aren't going to travel that far. So all of a sudden the interest is going away. Or it's not all around the Sandusky Register area, so the coverage isn't the same.
Indeed.
So they haven't created that atmosphere that I think young kids should get, where, you know, they feel good about it because they can read about it, or people can come and watch them play. I think we owe that to them.
I'm going to change gears a little bit and conclude with the span of your career. Retired, but still in the classroom. We're in the middle of the 2025-2026 school year. You're still teaching now, aren't you?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I'll tell you what I might be the proudest of is, all right, I coached in the 70s, 80s, 90s, from 2000 to 25. I mean, that's a lot of kids that you have to be able to communicate with. You have to be relevant in the way you talk to them. And I'm proud of that. Well, part of it is if you stay at it and you grow with the kids through all these, you know, decades of working, you learn how to continue to communicate with them. But I'll tell you what's on my mind, Paul, is the kids that I have today aren't that much different. Now, people are going to say, are you kidding me? Listen to that. No, they don't get a chance the way they used to, or mom and dad aren't around as much as they used to. But I'll tell you how they're the same. They want the same things that you and I wanted when we were young kids. They want to participate. They want to be noticed. They want to be recognized. They want to be a part of a team. That hasn't changed. Now, their attention span has changed. You know, I just wrote an article in the Register about how to communicate with kids because they got their face in this technology all the time. Well, we set the table for that. And I don't know, if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to communicate with them and then demand things out of them. Give them opportunities. To me, when I walk into a classroom, it's the same kid, but they don't have the same opportunities, want the same things. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, technology certainly has changed the landscape, but has it really changed the hearts and minds of young people? I see it your way. As a matter of fact, I always encourage parents of young people of delay as long as you can the moment when you give that child a cell phone. You can't unscramble that egg. What's the right age? I'm not sure. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, yeah, I do. I think if you have prepared your child well enough to handle it, there'd be different ages. But if everybody and their brother and somebody that's never there for them, that's never prepping them how this should be done, they're not ready for it. So to say, okay, 10 years old, 12 years old, no, I don't know. There's parents out there that can hand it to them when they were 8, 9, 10 years old, and they've taught them how to handle that situation. And they monitor it. They keep an eye on it all the time. But if you're going to just say, here's a cheap babysitter for you, just sit on the couch and bury your face in that. So many kids aren't ready for it. Some are. Some parents, it's like anything we do. Some parents have prepared their kids to handle what's out there. Seems fair. They're not ready at 10, 12, 16-year-olds. They're not ready to handle that global approach where everybody wants something from them, and us older people can fool them into doing this, this, and this. Not healthy, but there are parents that can do it. I've watched it.
And I have too. And I've also watched my friend Tom Siegel pour me a bourbon here at Vita on Columbus Avenue. Nice place, isn't it?
This is beautiful. It's a nice setup. And what a location. I mean, right in the middle of town, where if you go down Sandusky, the street right here, I mean, what they've done with this town is incredible. And here's Tom Siegel with his place right in the middle of it all. And it's really got a nice feel to it. I mean, it's comfortable.
Do you remember when this was a bank?
I remember going by it. I don't think I was ever in it. But yeah, and you think about the structures they have today for banks. I mean, it's a little 10 by 10 square, one guy in there. And you know, now, or back in the day, look at what they had. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, I appreciate you joining me with a conversation about leadership. As a matter of fact, when I think of the word, you come to mind instantly. I'd like for us to meet again and talk about leadership in a variety of scenarios and integrating maybe some news of the day. But we're calling it Lessons from the Vault. Actually, no, we're not calling it that. The Vault, leadership lessons you can bank on. Yeah. And so thanks for joining us. Until next time, I'm Paul Ward with my friend Tony Legando from The Vault, leadership lessons you can bank on.
From the Vault is sponsored by Vita Coffee and Wine Bar in downtown Sandusky, where the elite meet to eat. Visit us in person or on the web at vitasandusky.com. From the Vault is produced by Lake Erie TV. Watch us, like us, and follow us at lakeerie.tv.